Okay. Once there was a princess named Ellie.
You used my name.
She was a little princess. She was about 12 years old, and she had kind of her hair. Her mom kept trying to grow it out, but she always cut it short, and so it was kind of in between all the time. And she had green eyes and long legs, and she didn't keep her fingernails very tidy. You see, she didn't really want to be a princess. Being a princess was a lot of doing stuff you weren't that into.
And everyone did stuff for her.
Yeah, and she just didn't like it. She wanted to just be a regular girl. She didn't want to have to go to fancy dresses and fancy teas and
let everyone do stuff for her.
She didn't like that. So she wanted to do her own thing.
She didn't want to be fancy,
schmancy, bancy.
Like, she loved to ride horses, and they had a whole stable full of horses, big fancy horses, and she had a white horse named Snowflake, who was very spirited. But she didn't get to ride him like a regular horse. She had to ride side saddle, which means she had to keep both her legs on one side because that's how princesses rode. And whenever she tried to gallop, she'd fall over in the mud, she'd get in trouble, and she'd get sent back to horse riding class, or equestrian arts, as they called it.
You don't need the shirt.
And one time, she snuck into the kitchen. It was between lunch and dinner, and she knew that was the time they took a break. She snuck in there, and she made herself a sandwich.
What kind of sandwich?
She had cucumbers and provolone cheese and some lettuce, some slices of tomatoes, and a pickle garnish. And so she made this sandwich. It was great, but she had to eat it in the closet because princesses aren't allowed to eat with their hands. And she wanted to eat a sandwich. How hard could that be?
How hard could that be?
Can I eat my sandwich? Okay.
So her mom, she was kind of Ellie. She was kind of a tom girl, right? She wanted to go out and do rough stuff, and her mom made her learn needlepoint. Do you know what needlepoint is?
No.
Sewing.
It's sewing, but you make little pictures out of thread. Very carefully making pictures out of little thread. And so she made a pillow with a picture of a princess in a cage. Because that's how she felt.
Yeah.
Let me out of this pillow.
She was a princess, and so her mom and dad were queen, and they were always throwing these big...
Dad was a queen?
Mom and dad were king and queen.
Her mom was the king and dad was the queen?
Yes, exactly.
I like this kingdom.
And so they were always throwing these big, fancy royal balls. Everybody dressed up, and everybody made a big deal. And they didn't let her eat with her fingers. She had to use little tiny forks to eat little tiny food and dress up in fancy dresses. And they'd make her do this special waltz. So every time they had one, she would hide under the table. And she'd get the butler's son, the royal butler's son, and they'd play marbles. And
Did the butler's son not want to be the butler's son?
I don't know if he wanted to be the butler's son or not, but he liked to play marbles with Ellie. It was all good.
I can't believe you used my name.
And sometimes she would sneak up into the palace attic, creeping up the ladder, and crawl up into the dust and stuff, and she'd practice sword fighting with an old cane. Because she wanted to be like, have adventures. Princesses never got to have adventures. They have to wait for adventures to happen to them. And she didn't like that. So she'd practice sword fighting, but the maids saw her, and Ellie had to beg her, please don't tell my mom if she saw I was sword fighting. So I was supposed to be down cutting doilies out of silk. And I don't like cutting doilies out of silk.
Dainty doilies.
What are doilies?
And then when she had to go to choir practice, and always had to go to royal choir practice, and she had to wear a very stiff collar and sit perfectly upright and sing with the other girls, except she didn't like any of the songs, so she just moved her lips.
Bye. blah, 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 blah,
Blah, blah, blah, sing.
Like, and then he's going,
So she loved to read adventure books, especially books about pirates and treasure and pirates fighting dragons over treasure, because those were the ultimate. But her mom didn't let her. She made her read other books. Like she gave her Manners for Young Princesses and 10 Steps to the Perfect Curtsy and How to Drink Tea Elegantly,
You must
Pinky
lift,
raised or unraised. She
you
hated
must-
those books.
You must lift your skirt at least 10 centimeters above its original position.
So one day, she snuck out with her horse for a real ride. She got a real saddle. She wasn't sitting in the side saddle. She went out for a ride into the country. She wasn't about to be, but she was like, I have to get out of this castle. This castle's driving me nuts. And so she saw a farm girl who looked just like her, like exactly, like they looked identical. And she jumped down off the horse and said, I have an idea. I've got to get out of that castle. I bet you could have some fun being princess for a while. I'll be a farm girl for a while. We'll just switch places, okay? You go be the princess. I'll go be the farm girl. And we'll meet back here and we'll switch back if you like it. Or maybe I'll just stay being a farm girl. So she got to go swimming in the pond. Now, princesses don't get to go swimming. They get bathed.
Bathed.
And they get fitted for swimsuits, but they're only allowed to sit on the side of the pool with their sunglasses and look at the water. But she got to go swimming in the pond, which is not even a pool. It was like being out there in the dirt. She loved it.
The
And she
dirty pond
caught
for
a
frogs.
fish with her bare hands.
Frogs and fish.
Well, she caught a fish. She almost caught a frog.
Frogs and fish.
Frogs and fish are both there in the pond, yeah, but she caught the fish.
Frogs and fish are really great. Frogs and fish are awesome.
And then she was digging through the garden, and she ate a raw turnip with salt. She put salt on a raw turnip, little slices of it, and she loved it. It was crunchy, 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 and a little bit salty, salty, salty. And she decided if she was going home, one of the things she was going to sneak into the palace was going to have to be a bag of turnips and some salt.
and the turnip would have to be.
Raw.
So she was playing with all the other little village kids, and they taught her to play hide and seek, which you never got to play in the palace. You only got to practice the waltz. So she was playing hide and seek, she was playing hide and seek with the village kids, and she was giggling so much because she was having so much fun. She tried to hide in the hollowed out tree stump, and she was giggling. Then they found her right away. And she didn't care because she was having so much fun.
That's what I did when I was in preschool. I hid inside the big train play structure, and I giggled so much that people would find me.
And then they found a cave. One of the little village girls was showing her a cave. And she was scared because she hadn't been out in like nature or anything, and she crept up close to it. She was scared. But the little village girl showed her a web, and a spider caught a fly and then crept down, tick, 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 to the fly and ate it. And Ellie was just staring at it. She was fascinated.
It eats? I didn't know it ate.
So she's having all this fun, and I guess she's totally fooling the farm family. They don't know who she is, because she's pretending to be the farm girl, remember, who looked just like her. And she sitting down to dinner with them, and they hear a knock at the door. Knock, knock, knock. And you know who it was?
Who?
It was her mother. Her mom had figured it out because, you know, a little farm girl couldn't fool her mom with all the princess stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And the moms know their little girls. They're going to be able to tell. And she sat down with Ellie and she told her, really, I'm jealous. You think being a princess is hard work? You should try being a queen. I have to sit at all the formal presentations and hear all the speeches, and I have to help your father decide on all the taxes and the wars and everything. I hate it.
We're going to war.
So her mother said, I told everybody that I was going on holiday to the hunting lodge as a retreat so I could relax for a while. But really, I'm going to stay here on the farm with you. So they stayed on the farm. Her mom, they got dirty every day. They dug for worms. They went fishing. They fed goats. They had a great time. And so the little girl from then on, she and her mom, every once in a while, she and her mom would go out and just live with a farm family. And they'd leave all their fancy dresses behind. And they'd wear overalls and straw hats. And they had a great time.
What's up, Doc?
That's the end of it.
What's up, Doc?
That's the end of the story. What'd you think, Taya?
Good. What's next?